response. Good morning, everyone, and good evening for those in another time zone. As we reflect over our last 2 years, the number one lesson that we learned about people is that your people must be your top priority. So our motto that we adopted was people first. In this next slide, I'll walk you through how our company did just that. So to put people first especially during the pandemic, we wanted to focus on areas that boosted longer term engagement. First, we wanted to focus on providing space and stability. Now, our CEO made a very public commitment early on that there would be no layoffs during the pandemic. And what that did was provide employees at least a sense of stability at work where the rest of their lives were constantly changing. And the other focus was on keeping employees safe, whether they were working remotely, which the majority of our organization globally was remote, or in the office. That was a top priority. The second piece is a leadership focus. So not just focusing on how we were leaders in our respective markets or in the industry, we wanted to focus on people that were leading people. And we wanted to ensure that our leaders were trained, developed, and also supported, even if that meant providing scripts to certain conversations that needed to be had as our processes were changing. The third piece for the company was a focus on health and wellness. Now, this seems, pretty much what you should do, but this support was central to making sure that our employees felt like they were first. We were providing healthy office spaces, whether it was at home or in the office. We were partnering with local resources globally to make sure that they had access to testing, vaccines, medical clinics, all of those things, to make sure that we were helping them focus on their physical health. We also provided access to wellness and therapy resources to make sure they could focus on mental health as well. And last but not least is communication. That always remains to be important. We were intent on creating a single source of truth globally and across the regions. In this next slide, I want to show a quote by John Maxwell. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And with that in mind, I'll move to the next slide as we discuss how we zoned in on putting people first in our finance and FP&A organizations. Number one was prioritization. What we call it is ruthless prioritization. We had to make sure that we were focusing on the things that actually mattered and stripping away everything that didn't matter. That meant when it came time for the annual budget, when it comes time for quarterly forecast, even in our multi-year plan, we had to focus on the process, whether we're doing tops down versus bottoms up. We had to focus on people and their skills, not just their roles, not just focusing on people at mid-level, senior director, manager level. We had to focus on people based on their skills and what they were providing for the company. The second is communication. Communication remains a vital part of FP&A, making sure that we're creating a single source of truth, not just for the numbers, but also for the priorities of the company. If we are focused on investments rather than other types of spend, we need to make sure that we are communicating that, and that is in a single space for everyone to know. So email communications from the CFO, talks with the CFO and the FLT, town hall staff meetings, one-on-ones, all of those were employed in making sure that there was one message from a single source of truth to all of FP&A. And last but not least is employee support for FP&A. Now, we know that often, there are other initiatives that happen company-wide, but oftentimes our FP&A professionals aren't able to participate, especially if it's budget or forecast time. And for initiatives like we used to host this Wellness Fridays, where in the summertime, Fridays at 1 p.m., all employees were able to leave for the day or at least have no meetings. But, in FP&A, we are, of course, always too busy for that. But doing the prioritization, having that ruthless prioritization, communicating those priorities, focusing on the skills and not just the roles, that was critical to making sure that we're able to provide additional employee support for our employees in FP&A. Also, understanding if they've been focused on expenses, if they've been focused on headcount, but they have skills that we can really leverage in areas such as revenue, that comes with additional employee support there, making sure that we're supporting them. And in the next slide, you'll see a quote that we use. It's by Maya Angelou. It says, "People will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. So as part of the employee support, one of the things that we wanted to do is make sure that our employees felt the support and they felt engaged. And on the next slide, I'll talk about stay interviews. Now, a lot of people have heard of exit interviews. That's more of a postmortem when an employee is on his way out the door. But a stay interview is more proactive. It's a structured discussion where individual leaders learn what actions they have to do to strengthen their employees' retention within the organization. And what we've learned is a lot of times it's just about developing their skills. It's about letting them know that we're here to help them develop, to help them progress, and we're leveraging what we already have in the organization, which is our employee resources. So these are some of the things that we did at Visa as we've gone through the pandemic. And then as we've done this, you know, I mentioned before that we did a lot of training and everything, but one of the things that we realized is, hey, we're trying all of these different things, but as leaders, there's only so much you can do in a day. So what we wanted to focus on is that one thing. At the end of many of our trainings, the question was asked, so after everything you've learned, what is the one thing that you can do differently? What is the one thing that you can do better? And I'd encourage everyone here, as you're listening to the presentation, even on processes and technologies, what is the one thing that you can take away that you can do differently? So that's how we did it. Now, our top 2 lessons that we learned after going through 2 years of this, and you know, we're still in it, especially in some of the other countries and in the US, is number 1 is listen to your people. We're very good at telling people what the priorities are. We're really good at understanding, you know, what the margin targets are, you know, and doing the analysis and all of that. But listening to people is where you really learn how to best move forward. The other thing that's just hand in hand with that is leveraging existing resources. Instead of just always looking for the next thing that you have, the next bright employee that you want to bring in, there's often untapped gold in your organization. And so leveraging existing resources that you have, leveraging even existing systems to build that enterprise-wide system. You get that from listening, you get that from leveraging the skills that are already within your organization. So those are our top 2 lessons, and it's been definitely a fun ride, to say the least.